What are some of the things that you found that have helped you be able to replicate that mindset?
I was doing things, but I didn't know what I didn't know. You're only as good as your weakest player.
A good blueprint is you got to challenge people once they get to a certain level and it becomes routine. They've just got to be pushed. Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw, and this is a show where we talk about how do you build up a reliable, proven, transferable system for selling. Okay. And of course, we're powered by Sandler Training, the methodology that we use and we coach and train. But, if you're not into Sandler or into something else, that's fine too. The principles apply for how do you bring consistency to your sales team and to your sales process. So with that today, we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful guy, longtime friend and a great client, Jut Carnes. Jut is, but he's got the story that's very similar to others that have been on the podcast, where he starts in a maybe not so senior position and works his way up to the point where at this point he's the COO and SVP over at C.L. Burks. They are a commercial roofing company and all around powerhouse. They've grown just tremendously over the years and have built up some very, very good systems for being able to hire, which Jut will talk about, what to look for in candidates, how do you set expectations, how do you bring a great culture to the organization, and ultimately, how do you go build your own sales engine. So with that, let's dive into it. Today's guest is going to be Jut Carnes. So we got Jut Carnes here today. Looking forward to our conversation. So welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. So glad you could come join us, man.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and happy to be here.
Indeed, indeed. So a little bit of background. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's start there, and then we can talk a little bit about the business that you've been building over the last several years, because you've just done an amazing job. It's been so fun to watch what you've been doing at C.L. Burks. But give us some background.
Yeah, sure. Again, thanks for having me. I've been in the roofing business pretty much all my life. Chuck Burks, who is Charlie Burks' dad, his family business, and Charlie and I grew up together, and worked for his dad during the summers when we were in high school, and we've just kind of been in the business all of our life. So as we were going through the years, the things kind of changed in our industry a pretty good bit. And then, 2008 and 2009, we all remember the challenges we had then. We kind of readjusted and restructured the business model. And then we kind of took over more of the day-to-day, and his dad slowly, phased out and eventually retired. And Sandler's been a big help when I met Josh to help build that structure and scale the business that we have today.
Yeah, and it's been great. So you're in the commercial roofing business.
Commercial roofing, yes.
And your team is, how big are you guys today as far as people that you have selling and involved, and where did you start?
Yeah, so we started I'll just go back. The business was started in the early 80s. And Charlie's dad, through the years, it had numerous salespeople, had a few offices, but really when Charlie and I took over and call it 2010, it was me selling. Essentially, his dad was still doing a little bit with accounts that he had. But as far as prospecting new business, the behaviors to grow the business, I was doing a lot of that. And it was really just me. So we started picking up a little momentum in 2012, to where I started to actually sell some stuff to, at a decent amount. And then I think probably about 2014 is when I hired our first true salesperson. And
Jud, are you a born salesperson, or did
yes?
I mean, you're just from the womb, born salesperson, or is it something that you've had to learn and grow and go do? And either answer, I've asked this question before. Either answer is good.
Yeah, no, I that's a great question. I feel like I'm definitely born. I love people. I genuinely love getting to know people and care about people. So it's exciting to me to go into a room full of 100 people that most people, my wife being one, would not think that's a great idea. And for me, it's an opportunity to get to go meet people, establish relationships. And our business is such a cool industry because it's still a relationship-based business. People, we do repeat business with this majority, the same people every year. You get to know them, get to understand their needs, and get to, I always call it, get to hit the easy button.
Yeah.
How do we make it easy? So I strive to do that and implement that in each one of our people, not just sales, but could be operations, estimating, what have you. And that's kind of the mindset.
And so, if you think about it, I guess you feel like sales and selling became, or was pretty natural for you.
That's correct.
Here's something a lot of people struggle with, and that's, how do you replicate that? How do you get other people to go do something that for you has become very natural and it's very comfortable, and you're consciously competent at doing it? What are some of the things that you found over the years, and you guys have had such great success and growth? What are some of the things that you found that have helped you be able to replicate that mindset that you have and that success that you had?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sandler was the foundation for us being able to scale that. That was one of my biggest challenges as a sales leader when Josh and I met. And I expressed that to him of, we're growing, how do I grow it? What's the structure? And being a natural born salesperson is I can control my own behaviors because I run at a certain speed. I think the way I think. But yeah, like the question is, how do you scale that? How do you get them? And I believe it's a culture.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you create that culture? What does that culture look like? And that's where Sandler's come in to help set that foundation for me specifically, from everything from qualifying a job to asking the questions to monitoring it from a weekly sales meeting to, we monitor behaviors, we adjust, we coach off behaviors off our historical data that we have. So that's how we would scale that, because not every salesperson is the same. And our business, it's good to be diverse. It's good to have somebody that's I always say there's a couple different arms of selling, especially and I'm sure it's across the board, but in ours specifically, because I could need somebody that would sell to maybe a consultant. I need them to be very technical because they're designers. They have engineering backgrounds. They want to know about details. Well, then I may have somebody that, they don't want to know about details. They just want you to make it easy. They want a couple different things and that's it. So we need to be diverse in hiring and being mindful of how we strategically put them with the right customers.
So part of your, if you will, construction of your sales engine, so to speak, is identifying what are the characteristics of the salesperson and matching them up with the account and the personality. Does geography or industry or anything else take into place, or is it, because a lot of people struggle with that? Like, how do you optimize the personality of a person to an account or to territory? So lots of ways to do that. How are you guys doing that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, from a geographic standpoint, I mean, we have offices, multiple offices throughout the Southeast. So selling in Miami is completely different than selling in Chattanooga.
Yes.
Or outside in that area. So yeah, you have to understand your customer base and definitely put the right people in place to do that. Luckily, we have a good foundation for each of those markets. But as you continue to grow and continue to hire, that is something that you have to look for. And the same with with cultivating new business. We want to talk about for example, if I was to take somebody very technical who is in a sales role and say, hey, I want you to grow our business, and I don't define what customer base, he's going to struggle.
Yeah.
Or she's going to struggle. So pointing them in the right direction, giving them the right tools to say, hey, I want you calling on, let's just say, healthcare, because they're going to maybe be a little more technical. They're going to want to know more information about the roof. It's not I'm going to go in there. It's a volume thing. It's more of the right person thing.
So, Jut, when you bring somebody in, are you saying then that you'll sort of evaluate their personality and gear them towards certain accounts in certain segments within a geography, like
Absolutely.
healthcare? That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes people, they'll like throw a salesperson in and they'll say, okay, this is your territory, and good luck without enough guidance. And at least I've seen people say, well, this is an experienced salesperson. They'll know what to do. They don't. They just don't. Do they, or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And what I've kind of found interesting over the years, and it was a lot like myself, when Josh and I met, I was selling a pretty substantial amount of business. And again, going back to the natural sales, there were certain questions I needed to know. I was doing things, but I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know that this was called qualifying, or there was more questions that needed to be asked, or, timeline, or what, like the structure wasn't there for me. So just even going back to that initial step, I was doing it, but wasn't recognizing it. So now we can recognize it. We all know it. It's a language. It's a culture that we have in our business. And then, yes, getting that person, calling on the person that they're going to fit well with. And that's not always going to be the case. Of course, it's, when you do have a region that you're selling in, naturally, if you're having trouble in a specific industry, the sales individual is going to start going outside of it. I mean, it's just natural. And they're going to start calling, and I don't mind if they do that to a degree, but we want to kind of keep guardrails on them, because just based off historical data and knowing personalities, what's going to best suit them for the long term. And ours is it's a long-term process. On average, on capital projects, it's a 4-month sales cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not instant gratification like a lot of industries. So they're coaching that client, they're massaging the relationships, trying to provide a good service for months, sometimes even years. You want to make sure that their personalities mesh well, for sure.
Yeah. So if you think about like what I'm hearing from you is that when you're building your sales engine and you're building your process, you got the people and hiring the right people. So we should come back to that, because I'm curious is like what you look for when you go hire. You've hired a lot of good people.
Yeah, we have.
And then you've got the process that you're following. And so you've mentioned we'll hit that as well, but also the right accounts, the right territory. It's a mixture of getting all of these ingredients together and aligned up so that the gears are meshing well for you. So let's go back to the people side of things, because hiring is, of course,
it's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I work for a CEO who's one of the smartest guys I have ever met. And I worked for the guy for 16 years. And I remember him saying to me, he said, look, if you can get your hires at 50%, a coin toss, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, what a low bar that is.
Yeah.
And here this guy who's a genius of a guy, of a leader, being right 50% of the time when you hire somebody, that's good. So what are some of the things that you've looked for in really good salespeople that have performed well?
It's changed a lot through the years. So the initial response I want to give is personality, because I like them to be personable. I like them, but that doesn't make them necessarily a good account manager.
Yeah. It's not the only thing.
It's not the only thing. And I used to lean toward that was, they got to be that.
Yeah.
Well,
sort of the relationship seller, so to speak.
Let's just say more of the business development type.
Okay.
the more outgoing, but you know, what I found through the years is somebody that might have that strong suit on the business development side may not be the best for certain accounts from an account management to asking the tough questions.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the diversity of who you have, where are you going to utilize them? And we've done that through the years of having one person on a certain account and then getting a different person to where we thought their personality fit better on the account, and tremendous growth almost overnight. And it's like shocking to us. Like, we thought it would be good, but we didn't realize we could grow that much and start having different conversations that quick.
Because are you finding then that there's certain people that have a mindset towards new business? They like the charge of a new relationship, a new sale. And then there's other people that just want to go, they don't actually, that intimidates them. They want to go deeper and have more meaningful relationships with people. Is that what you see?
100%.
Yeah. I see the same
100%.
thing. You know, there's people, they're just almost genetically wired to be one way or the other.
It's the thrill of the new.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of that in me for sure. And I think it's a great quality. The challenging, it's great. It's great.
Or maybe I should say, and it's a great quality. And
the thing about like where we're at, so let's just say here at, you know, in Cumming, where we're headquartered, we have so many great accounts to where we got to be careful with how much we always do prospecting. We're always continuously prospecting, but are we expanding to our full capacity? So you take a healthcare system that's in Atlanta. We do a lot of healthcare here. We do at least some with most of the major healthcare systems here. So one of the things that I, you know, tell our guys that are managing some of these accounts is we're prospecting. We're going to spending time with this, you know, customer here when we still have millions of dollars to expand on, which these accounts are hard to get in. So that business development part, however we got in, is very difficult. Most people have a tough time doing that. So we're already past what I would say was probably one of the hardest parts. So now you've got to have that personality, and that's where I come in, and us as a team, our GMs, you know, whoever it may be, to coach that person and slow down a little bit. Let's analyze this account. How much do they do a year?
Yeah.
How much potential do we have to grow? So that's where going in, having those, I say, a little bit more meaningful conversations. But a lot of people are uncomfortable sitting in front of somebody having that. I think it's I don't know if it's a personality thing, if it's just a.
Yeah, you know what I see, and maybe you see the same thing. Like, tell me, is it's almost like, I'm going to say this the right way. It's impatience. It's impatience, but not necessarily in a bad way. Because if you have somebody that needs to go prospect for new business, impatience is a good thing. You want them to be impatient. Somebody that is going to work on an existing account and they need to make sure that they've covered all the bases with all the relationships at all the levels and all the departments, that requires patience.
An extreme amount, yes.
And that can be frustrating to certain people. And I don't mean impatience is a bad thing. Impatience can be a very good thing. But that's one of the characteristics, at least I've seen. Does that resonate with you?
That's a great way to put it. Absolutely. And the people that want to know more and want to dig in and want to, clean everything up, cross the T's, dot the I's. This is what we're doing with the account. What I've seen is the higher level people that are ultimately signing off on those accounts really gravitate toward that person more in the long run, because it's not a quick, we go. It's I know they've answered all the, asked the right questions. So there's a level of comfort with that person to move forward with a long-term relationship.
Yeah. And have you, and if you don't want to answer this, it's okay. But have you decided that at some point that someone needs to be more prospecting and someone needs to be more account management? and not try to blend those roles or hand the account off? Because that's got some challenges with it too.
So we have, I will say that is still something that I have not figured out within our business. And I've looked at it from multiple different angles. And if I could go change it right now, if I could just leave here today, go hit a button and change it, I would segment that in that sales department. I would have the business development. I would have the account management. But with our business, it's really difficult to do. And I think the challenge is going to be with where do those two lines, where do they cross? Where does it get passed off? Financially, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's another story.
That's a big deal.
Because in fairness, I mean, finding the account sometimes can have a higher value than keeping the account. Now, keeping the account is super valuable and expanding it for sure. But one of the hardest things in sales is opening up a new door and a new relationship and displacing an incumbent or an existing relationship. That's one of the toughest assignments. So compensation can be a factor in that.
It's a big deal. And I think in our business, that is probably the most challenging part that we have, especially with our business model where we're at right now, because we're very good in all aspects of the business. I mean, we've been doing it a while. So operationally, we're very good. We're well trained. I always, at one point, I didn't think we were an A-list contractor. I've said that before. I think we could have done better, years ago. And now we're in a spot where I'm like, we're good. I'm confident we're good. We can roof anything. If we have the right information, we have the people in place to do that. Mm-hmm. Estimating wise, we can estimate the job, we can perform the job, we can do all the things. But how do we get into the new business? Let's just say we've got a, XYZ company over here that we've been trying to get to that we all know could produce millions of dollars. Well, why don't we work with them? Well, that goes back to my technical person who's going to want to ask those questions, going to want to do those things. He's not your, I'm going to make calls. I'm going to set up meetings. I'm going to get rejected. A great example of that is we work with Shaw Industries is a very good customer of ours, been friends of ours for, I guess probably the last 12 years. And they're a big player in, North Georgia. Well, I had called on them through the years, got meetings set up, canceled, meetings set up, canceled. So this went on. I mean, it went on for years to finally, there was some personnel changes. A guy had retired and they were willing to, talk to us at that point. And for the past, I think 3 or 4 years, maybe longer, they use multiple contractors because of the size, but fortunately we've been able to be their number one contractor. Well, we got to be number one because operationally we're really good and we're putting on good roofs and we're doing what's right. But the challenging part was who's persistent enough to stick with that for years.
Yeah.
And being rejected
as a seller.
Yeah. Over and over and over. So that's the difficult part.
So when you go to hire somebody, you're looking for that balance. At this point, you're looking for that balance of somebody that can go look for new business, but at the same time be able to manage existing business.
Absolutely.
And expand it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But that component comes in to where you're always going to have the person that's going to lean to one side or the other.
It's just how it is.
I mean, it is. And, I use myself for example. I'm going to lead toward, I like the new.
Yeah.
I like to go out and I like to hunt and it's fun. And I have to remind myself to slow down. And, as I've grown through the years and, Josh and Sandler has been a great help to recognize the expand piece of the business. So we've got to coach accordingly. And the way that we have it set up with our general managers, they're the sales managers in their region. I get involved to a certain degree, but we've got it to where we're touching them a lot and guiding them through that, coaching them through those certain stages, because once they do get that bigger piece of business that has a lot of potential, a lot of times it needs more than that one person involved. And that way we can come in, help, try to find out what their needs are and try to make it easy on the account manager, salesperson.
Yeah. And by the way, that's another element to it too, is you've got some people that want to be lone wolf sellers, and you've got other people that certainly do appreciate having the team, and you get bigger accounts and you're going to go deeper into existing accounts. They've got to have that team approach.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw the challenges of the lone wolf, and I'm going to go do it. I'm going to do it my way. This is how I want to do it. And it creates a roadblock to where it's like, well, that's fine. We can get to a certain level with that mindset, but we can't achieve what we're all trying to achieve as a team until we get on that team mindset.
Yeah.
And that's where, through the years, we've been able to make adjustments and see growth. And it's hard. Growth's hard. It's hard for, it's been hard for me at times. It's been challenging. You got to look yourself in the mirror and realize that you need to work on yourself sometimes. So coaching other people and able to do that and getting them to break out of that shell to continue their growth is something that we try to instill in our leaders, because I always tell people when they come to work, I'm like, if you don't like changes, you're not going to like this. Because once I see that we're kind of stagnant and we're just doing our thing, what can we do? What can we challenge the next person with? Because that's when you get better. That's where the growth comes from.
And so culturally, we were talking about that a minute ago, that just culturally, you've got to find people that then are willing to undergo change. They're willing to look for what's new, not get in a comfort zone, which is a natural habit for most everybody. So you got to break through that. You're looking for people that have the ability to go build rapport and relationships with people, but at the same time, knock on new doors and be strategic. There's a lot of ingredients to finding the right person. That's right. And you guys have done a great job of that, no doubt. But those are some of the characteristics. And I think a lot of people face that. I think maybe yours as much as anybody, but a lot of people face that challenge of finding the right person and all of the right ingredients to have somebody be successful.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, whatever industry you're in from a sales position, it's always going to be the challenge. You're always going to be kind of turning the knobs, tweaking it, coaching, leading in different directions. And everybody, I mean, if you went into our office here in Cumming and you looked at all the sales guys on there, they're all completely different. I can tell you what they're going to gravitate to, I mean, throughout our company. And like we were talking about earlier, is one of the reasons you can tell a lot by personality, just, how sometimes I'll be surprised. But typically you can tell a lot by personality. Something that we've done as a result of, just growing through the years with you all is creating a different structure. So like I mentioned before, we do sales meetings every Monday. We track behaviors. Well, behaviors are what they are. I mean, how many prospecting calls, how many meetings, how many good conversations, the list goes on. So we track a certain amount of data. Well, you can look back at your data, and I tell people, you can fluctuate the numbers if you want to make it look good for that week. Okay. Well, all that's going to do is prolong us to help get you better. Because through the years, I've looked at it and I'm like, come on.
Really?
Like, yeah. So we kind of recognize the elephant in the room sometimes. If it's like, hey, do this for yourself. This data isn't as much for me as it is for you, because we're going to invest in you to help you grow if we learn something off of this, and you will learn something.
Yeah, I know. I've had to say to people, it's not in your best interest to make the numbers look good at the end of the day.
No.
So I'm curious, Jut, when you're talking about, like, take us into that meeting. Like, let's say you're in that weekly review meeting, you're going through the numbers. Is it on a spreadsheet that everybody puts it in ahead of time? Is it through CRM? How are you talking through the numbers? Do you have, like, is everybody in the room, or is it a one-on-one? What's that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody's in the room. So everybody's from the different regions are zooming in, and everybody, locally and coming, everybody's in the office, and we pull the information through a CRM that we use. So you put in, and we actually, it's on the CRM, but we enter information into just a Google document because we have some different behaviors we track that's not included in that CRM that we want to, keep track of. So we just pull it. It's all printed. Everybody's got it. It's up on the TV.
Yeah.
So it's in front of everybody.
So everybody sees everybody's numbers.
And something that we do as an accountability of, to us as peers in a group is we have a winner and a loser for the week. And we've through the years, it's like, should we say winner and loser? What else could, is that too, but at the end of the day, you can call it what you want. Who did the best for that week? Who needed work?
Yeah.
I like to look, think of it like that. And years ago, I used to do it. I'm driving down the road and I'm like, why am I doing this? It's like, I'm the bad guy. I'm not the bad guy. I'm trying to get them to grow. I'm trying to get them to think outside the box. This information is for them, like we talked about. So what I started doing, I said, I'm going to listen. I'll ask a question here and there, but I'm just going to listen. Well, now when we do it every week, a different, team member is the leader of the meeting and they pick who needs work.
And so they get to be the good guy or the bad guy in terms of picking who's
and you can't pick yourself.
You can't pick yourself.
Because we've been through that challenge too. It was like, oh, I need to do work. No. It can't be you.
and it sounds like it's lighthearted culturally, which is one of the elements that you said that was important in building up the business. It sounds like it's lighthearted when if you're the loser of the week. It sounds like that's the case. Is that the case?
It is. And it's a great environment. It is. But I can tell you that you don't want to be. No, it's not like no one's getting scolded. It isn't anything like that.
You don't want to be loser of the week 2 weeks in a row or 3 weeks in a row.
If you start seeing a pattern, if I'm in, that situation and they're saying, well, Jut didn't X and X and X, no matter if I'm selling or not, it's like, well, what's going on? And what I found is there will be conversations outside of that meeting once there starts to be a pattern.
So somebody's coaching somebody up.
Correct.
That's good. That's great culture.
It's great. And we've actually utilized that same behavior process for our operations team.
Mm-hmm.
And we set what behaviors do we want to see to where they set their goals the week before. You got to kind of tweak it for them because things can change a little more with them depending on, variables. But the same mindset and business model is what we've used in other meetings.
And so part of what I hear in there that I think is this, it's a consistent theme that I've seen with people that are successful is they have a cadence of meetings that take place. Mm-hmm. And there's an agenda that's the same agenda that you go through just from an efficiency point of view, but you're covering the same things every time you get together. The other thing that I hear in there that everybody should be, taken away from it for sure is the fact that you're publicly letting everybody know what their performance is, because some people are hesitant to do that, Jut, such that they don't want to embarrass somebody. But the reality is where at least I've seen teams grow the most. It's when there's public accountability, there's a ranking on a board, and what ends up happening is the people that are at the bottom of that board eventually go away some way. They either get better or they go away, and the whole bar goes up. The whole range of the group gets better, and the new people that come in now have to be at the top end of that range. You do that over years, it's like the most. So if you have any thoughts around that, but I've seen that as being the best way. You're smiling.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you said that because you're only as good as your weakest player. I think Nick Saban had a saying, I can't quote him, but it's a cultural thing that, that he created, and there's no weak links. Everybody that's maybe sitting waiting on that position is ready, and they're being taught, so that's the idea of the mindset that we have of whether you're coming in and, you're not an account manager and you're coming up through our program of, we've got a pathway of getting to other positions. And if you've done the other ones, it's culturally, it's a mindset, it's training, and it's that consistency with meetings, the same repetition. It's just like anything else you want to do. Consistency is the biggest key. If you were to go to the gym, I don't care how hard you work out twice a week, you need to do it 5 days a week. And you don't have to go as hard. Consistency, show up every day, do the behaviors, do the same thing. That's what we try to teach and instill in all of our team members, and especially our sales people as well, is because it does get tough. Every day's not going to be the greatest day, maybe on the phones, or maybe you are going to lose a big deal, but showing back up the next day and being consistent, it has shown through the years success on each one of them.
It's just one of the biggest ingredients, without a doubt. And I think the part of what I'm hearing in your message too is that there's an expression we use in Sandler: you get what you tolerate. And it really, I mean, if you allow somebody to be outside of the standards for a while, you're basically, I think, you're teaching the rest of the team that that's acceptable.
Yeah. And I've been guilty of that. I mean, I know you and I have actually talked through the years of some challenges, and it's tough, especially when you've got, you get your employees that have been there for a while, and maybe they hit that wall, but it starts affecting your culture. And that's where, going back to you're setting the bar. It's, and we're like family. So it's very difficult in those situations to keep raising that bar. And that's I think probably, I know our biggest challenge is the adjustment when that bar is being set, because we don't typically adjust quick enough sometimes. And I think that's probably normal with most people. But in order to continue to grow, to be better every year, you've got to hire and you got to let go. And that's the tough part about any business.
Yeah, and you got standards by which, at least what I hear, you got standards by which you're operating. When people are outside of those standards, you're bringing it up. You got a good cadence, because originally when we talked about this, you were saying it's culture, it's people, and it's process. And so it sounds like you got some really cool processes as far as the consistency of having those meetings. I found the same to be true. You can't not have regular. No one likes meetings. I don't think anybody just can't wait to come in to have a meeting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's the way to get things done.
There's a balance.
Yeah.
The first meeting that we ever had, I was heavily involved in operations, 10 years ago or more, and longer than that, but probably about 10 or 12 years ago, we had a couple project managers, we had a sales guy. So it was like, hey, we need to meet. We're going to meet on Tuesday afternoon. There's no structure. We might meet, they might show up, they might not. So then you got to get a little more stern, or now we're going to meet on this time, and everybody's got to, okay, so now you got to coming to a meeting. So now what do you discuss? So, and that started there, call it 12 years ago, to where it's evolved into a Monday meeting. We have a young lady that runs the meetings, that's helped with the structure. Everybody knows what we're coming in to talk about. And we fine-tuned it through the years to our estimating department meets on Fridays to be prepared for that Monday meeting. Our operations team meets on Friday to be prepared for that big Monday meeting. And that's, I brought everything that we got going on, we touch. It used to last 3 to 4 hours. And when we were done, we were exhausted. It was tough. Well, now I think this week we've got more business going than we ever have, and it was an hour.
Yeah. And I think that's a lesson for everybody is when you do it consistently and you have an agenda together, it just gets much, much, much faster. But the problem is that it takes maybe 8 or 10 times at least to get into a flow and a rhythm where you start to see the benefit of it. And I think people give up on it too soon. And as a result of that, they squander that opportunity.
That's a leadership thing. And, and I took full responsibility. And when we were doing these, that, I was going to be in these meetings. I'm leading essentially and going to be in charge. So that was a big growth period for me because, 5 years ago, I would spend all day in a conference room. I mean, from 7:30 to 4:00, a lot of times eating lunch in there.
It's not your personality.
It's not what I wanted to do. But to get the information that I felt like I needed to get from because at that point we departmentalized. We did it a little bit before, but to communicate and have the different departments communicating, to fine tuning it, I felt like that's what we needed. I didn't know what it looked like. So we went through a lot of challenges. And when I would leave, I felt beat up and mentally it was exhausting.
And I've been there too. And you almost doubt yourself in terms of, am I doing the right thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I want to do something else.
Yeah, that's true too. And then it's like, is this efficient? Is it the right stuff? We have, and I'll throw this out. I'm sure you guys do the same thing, but we have a Word doc that we use every single week, and all we do is we copy the last week's to the top of the page for the next week. And I think that Word doc, that's a weekly meeting that we have, that we go through our agenda, and everything that from the previous week is already sort of copied paste. So if there's an action to follow up on, you're just looking at it. It's already there. You're updating it. I think our current document it's 1 page per week. I want to say it's 375 pages long. So it's like 7 years of weekly meetings. And it's like 30 minutes now. And we cover all of these things. So you're seeing the same thing.
It's the exact same thing. That's what we do. And,
how do you keep it from not getting boring? Or do you? I mean, the reality is the consistency.
That's a tough question because because
the consistency of it kind of also creates
having
routine.
The right people in that meeting is because it's not boring for me personally, because when I leave there, I know enough to where if I need to have a phone call, if I need to do something. So that for me sets the tone for the whole week. So I'm very engaged. I don't miss that meeting. Very, very important. That's a high level meeting. There has been different personnel through the years in that meeting that didn't need to be in there, that could have updated notes. And we recently had one of the ladies that helps with another department. She kept coming in there and I'm like, not that she seemed, it was boring, but it was like, does she really have to? And she was like, thankful, like, yeah, okay, it gives me more time to do something else. I can update notes on Friday. And it's the little things. It's not a big deal, but I think to answer the question of keeping it from being boring, you got to have the right people in the room. And could it be solved by an email on Friday updating so they could update the notes to report? Yeah, we found that out to where, so if we do need to go in the weeds a little bit on something, 4 other people aren't rolling their eyes going, oh man, let's get out of here. Well, no, majority, everybody in there now really wants to know the answer and wants to dive in a little bit. And that's another whole deal, is you got to have somebody. One of the biggest challenges that we face, that we overcome, is you have to have somebody responsible for running the meeting.
Yep. That
person has got to be able to tell myself specifically, because I may get a little long-winded and dive into something more that needs to be tabled for another time. I need that person to say, can this be tabled? Can we talk about this another time? Basically saying, we're going to be in here all day. So,
and you don't have the, you may be the most senior person in the room, but if you don't have, I mean, this is no disrespect, but a lot of times the most senior person in the room doesn't have the perspective of where you are in the meeting.
And I need that. And that's something you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, what we hired, her name's Victoria, and hired her and challenged her with doing that. And she was right out of college. So she's coming
So here she is telling you, the boss.
In a very difficult situation. And she has done a tremendous job of turning, and she's the hub of, those meetings, capital projects. So she communicates with all the departments to make sure the information is getting processed to bring it back to that Monday meeting and be on top of things.
By the way, you're bringing something else up I see as well, and I got to just point it out, and that's most sales teams that I see have somebody that is the den mother. They are the operational glue. They're the hub. They're making things flow within that team. And it sounds like you have that person, and
that's a difficult position.
It's very difficult,
very difficult. So,
you gotta have enough spine and sternness. And
I wouldn't have wanted to do it. I mean, for her to be able to come in there and do that,
especially out of college,
and we're predominantly men, so it can be a tough environment at times, and you're working with multiple different departments, and they're all different personalities. So you got to.
It's a lot of moving parts,
and you have to know how to communicate to each one. So she's grown a lot through the years of being with us. I think this is her 5th year with us.
This is recorded. She's going to hear this, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's
okay.
Good.
All right. All right.
She knows how much we value her. So, and I've told her that, that I'm impressed what she's done. And, so my challenge for her now is to see that potential of what she can do and challenge her to keep her growing and challenged, and for people in that position like her,
which is part of having a good process and having good, again, a good blueprint is you got to challenge people once they get to a certain level and it becomes routine. They've just got to be pushed, which is in a good way, challenge.
Yeah, that's ideally that's what we want in each of our employees, is to want more, to grow. No, not everybody's going to want to, and that's perfectly fine as well. But we want to give them the tools and the resources and the ability to do that if we see that they want that.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And there's a lot of key elements that I hear in there of what you guys have done to go build a good, reliable, repeatable system for selling. Have to ask this question, and we can wrap up. But I'm curious, how do you reinforce Sandler? And I ask that question, whether somebody's listening and they are using Sandler or not, there are good processes in place or methodologies for selling. How do you reinforce those key principles so that everybody's, operating around those principles, whether it's Sandler or something else? Anything that you guys are doing that are especially good?
We have non-negotiables for our sales process. All right. So, as a company, you got to have some non-negotiables that your core value. I mean, I'm sure you have them. I have them. I think everyone has them, whether they have written them down or talked about them or what have you. So I think with Sandler, it's a part of my non-negotiable as a person, because I've been able to scale it. It's like, well, what do we say has helped us through the years and being able to do it? So as far as hiring a new salesperson, this is our culture. This is the language we speak. And that starts when a salesperson goes out and meets with a customer. They have to find out a certain amount of information, or as part of a non-negotiable, it don't pass go.
Yeah.
Because we're not able to process it to provide the service that we say we provide. So that's step number one. But that comes from leadership of buying into the system and truly, making adjustments when people aren't buying into it. And to grow a sales organization, it starts with the leader, I believe.
Yeah.
And for me, it comes with some challenges, because naturally, people are going to resist it. I was fortunate to get in when we were fairly, I use young in our business and growing, but from where we were at with the business, we were, kind of young in that sense. But if you have a more established business, that's going to come with a greater challenge, because you're going to have to be prepared that not everybody's going to make it. And that's the tough part, because you've got to stand your ground and say, this is what we're doing.
And there's a culture there, whether you like it or not. The culture might not be a healthy culture. And so if you step into a role, you got to change something that's maybe not what you ultimately, what it needs to be isn't what it is today.
What's that? Yeah. It's what is that foundation? And if you step into that as a sales leader, you got to look in the mirror and say, what's my foundation? What's my non-negotiables? Just because, I may like a person, if they're resisting against my system, it's going to mess up 25 other people. You can't, and maybe not all 25 are going to be watching what they're doing, but about half are, and they're going to still be on the fence. So I think that's the most important thing. I think it's just to start out and have your leaders buy into it.
Yep.
And everybody get in that same mindset.
And have some mantras and statements that you make, and there's standards there. There's expectations. Judd, I had and we'll wrap up, but I had a VP of sales, CRO, said to me one time, he goes, when I get my new salespeople together and I get a new person that comes into the team, I give him this speech. And I wouldn't do it as well as he did, but he said basically this. He said, we have a system, and you probably have a system for selling too. He said, systems sometimes work and some systems don't work. He said, my system works. I know it works. It's proven. It's been done. So as far as systems to choose, if you want to choose a system, you can choose mine, and we know it works. The thing about yours is we don't know if it works. So you can do your system, but we don't know whether it's going to work. And it might not. Mine, we know works. So which one are you going to choose to use? And it was, to me, it was such a nice way to lay out the expectations so that there's a choice that they're making, sort of, in terms of, we're going to follow the process that we know that works, and these mantras and these philosophies.
Absolutely.
As opposed to, I'm going to do it on my own and try to figure it out, which is fraught with bad things. So,
yeah. And we have the same mindset. Our business model is interesting because we have a certain niche that we want to go after. So, when somebody comes in and say, well, I'm going to go after this business, it's like, well, that's not the business we're, initially talked about. We don't go for that. So, or a lot of people, they might come in and say, well, I'm going to drive around and knock on doors. I've heard that a lot. And yeah, I don't think it's going to work.
it's a system.
It's a system. I don't think it's going to work. Well, I did it, but okay, well, I don't know it's going to work. And I'm like, make the phone calls. We've invested in software. It takes a fraction of the time. It's already pre-qualified that it's the right person, versus walking in and somebody, if somebody walked in to meet with me straight off the street, come on in.
Yeah.
That's not going
to happen
It's not
often.
going to work.
Sometimes, but not often.
Maybe. I can't remember the last time it did, but I can remember the last time I picked up the phone and said, okay, let's see for just a second. So, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Everybody has their different systems, but we have ours. We have certain things we want to do, like you were saying, and that's what we want to follow. And once they see success, we've got a guy that is out of our Chattanooga office, and he's more of the technical sales guy, not the business development guy, never has made phone cold calls. And he's had some success, and the ball's rolling. And now I'm a believer. I believe, and you don't have to do it. You don't have to make 500 phone calls a week. Some guys do. You may be consistent on 50. But finding your rhythm and your niche and what you're doing is, once you find that and stay consistent, it'll work.
And so if I'm thinking through the key things that I've heard from you today, consistency is a key ingredient, without a doubt. I mean, that's a key thing. The culture of the people. And that culture is largely established by setting standards and mantras and beliefs that you have that are non-negotiable with what you're doing. And so you get the right people with the right systems and the right culture in place, and you get to grow like you have over the last, how many years?
Well, I've been there 20.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we've been working together for what, 5, 6, something like that, maybe 7, somewhere in that
Yeah, I
range.
know it's at least 6. I'm thinking maybe 7. And it's been a great ride. And and we're in that groove to where it's fun.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it should be.
And that's a statement to our employees and our team members. We've got some of the best around. It's really good. It's business and it's challenging. I mean, it's tough. You don't go in and just get a check and go home. It didn't work like that. But when you're able to have those hard conversations, everybody when our leaders get on board to go in a different direction, our guys know that we're doing that in the best interest for everyone. And I like to tell everybody, remind me of a time that we've made an adjustment where you didn't do better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying we've always done it right, but we're very calculated.
Your track record's
when
good.
we make moves. We don't just wake up and say we're doing it overnight. So I think
consistency.
Correct. And and if you look at our business of where we started, let's just say in 2010, when we kind of were doing the day-to-day to where we are now, our growth it speaks for itself. So, we're happy to tell that story. And, it's great for me because I started out again on the roof, shoveling ballast on a roof to where we're at today, and getting to watch some of the younger guys come in and start to take off and start to take on more responsibility and grow through the ranks. It's good.
Well, one of the blessings we get on our side is to get to see good people like you have that growth, and to watch you personally take on different challenges and bigger challenges and come out of your comfort zone. It's a blast to have you a part of what we do. And thank you for taking time today.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it. And can't thank you guys enough for what y'all have done for me and CL Burks as a whole. I really appreciate it and appreciate the friendship.
Indeed. Same here, my friend. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on.
Mark.
So, hey, I hope you've gotten a ton of value out of this episode. By far, it's our purpose to help people make money and have fun and have a good time. We're here to help improve your life, to help you make it easier to go sell or to manage your sales team, and ultimately to go build your own sales engine. Don't miss an episode. Best way to go do that is to make sure that you jump out to buildingyoursalesengine.com/follow, where you can link up to all of our latest episodes. For more information about this episode, go to buildingyoursalesengine.com, where you can download show notes, transcripts, and other information, including handouts and snapshots of this and other episodes. If you'd like to connect with us to talk about how we can help you build your sales engine, and you are either located in the state of Georgia or are referred to us by one of our clients or affiliated by one of our clients, please reach out to us at buildingyoursalesengine.com, where you can click there to book some time with us. We can find out how we can be of help with one another. If you're not in either of those two circumstances, please reach out to Sandler.com, where you can find a Sandler office near you. Be well.